Under planning and zoning, nothing of any note. Yeah, no, we have several recommendations. They're from the planning from last, I don't know that we need to go into detail this evening, but there's a Garyville self-storage waiver recommendations. There was the recommendation for the Glenwood Chase minor subdivision, preliminary and final approval.
Can we back up? Are you saying number one, Garyville self-storage waiver recommendation
That's,
is on our agenda for tomorrow night?
yes, because the planning commission recommended.
Okay, well then, yeah, I'd like to have a discussion
Tonight or tomorrow?
tonight.
We'll have it tonight, we're here.
Well, are we missing a step? You have waivers. I don't know. We're missing a step. We have, generally, the solicitor would talk to the applicant about, what's the term?
The contribution.
The contribution. Yeah, so I'm not gonna approve anything tomorrow night if we haven't had that discussion.
Well, I don't believe we have on the Garyville, no, I was concentrating on the other,
So you have waivers.
well, what we don't have is the estimate from LTL, which is typically what starts that off.
Okay, we're missing the process, and I for one, guarantee, I'm not gonna discuss these waivers tomorrow night. We haven't, LTL hasn't done their calculation, and we haven't had the solicitor discuss, actually, you're supposed to meet with us, and we discuss what the,
No, that's not typically, LTL comes up with the number, and then the solicitor contacts,
We're told the number, we see the number,
and then see if the board
They give us the number.
accepts the number.
and
So how did we bypass
LTL
that?
gives us
LTL
their,
gives-
their estimate. And then
Yes.
we ask our solicitor to negotiate that estimate.
Well, I did not.
my recollection is, we were discussing it with the solicitor, and then come up with a number that we asked him to go.
We need the estimate from LTL to know what the cost of the waivers
I
are.
totally agree,
Then-
but we don't just let the letter from LTL go to the solicitor, and he comes back to us and says, oh, here's
Well,
the.
I thought we did
then that has been the process, I understand. The
Well-
solicitor, I mean, because,
Hey, do you want me to cite here now those projects that we had this discussion? We had a discussion about Glenwood Chase in front of the solicitor and told him what to do.
Right.
We had a discussion on the place over on Miller Road. Come on now, I didn't dream this up.
well, you made your point, and the fact is, we don't have the.
Maybe we
See, I
should,
thought we did, I thought, but I'm mistaken evidently, that we did it at final.
And this is just gonna be
Before
self-storage, correct?
before they recorded the plans, but I might be
These two
mistaken.
started another
Yeah, it's been a
company.
while
That's
since
how I
we've
thought
had
we
them.
did it.
well,
I thought we did it at their final.
how could you do
No,
it
we
at
do
final
it before-
if you
before the
already
waivers
approved
are-
the waivers? You have
right.
nothing to negotiate.
Right.
Sometimes the waivers are so minor that they don't really have much of a value. You know, I can't comment on these waivers.
And that's the reason why LTL does this thing. We sit and look at it and come up with a recommendation, if that's what you want to call it.
Well, we have letters from LTL, why wasn't that done, I wonder?
I don't know.
You know, I
I
just wondered
Sounds
why,
like
why
there's-
John Weber wouldn't have done that
Sounds
as
like
part
there's
of,
a
as part of the
confusion of the
recommendations of the
process.
waivers. Because they made recommendation on
Well,
the waivers. I
well,
wondered if
okay,
LTL
well, part of it is, well, I mean, Mr. Weber was not at the last
the
meeting.
last meeting.
He was away all last week, so I don't believe he's had a chance yet to issue that, so I can certainly.
And maybe that
communicate
happens in
We're
that
probably
short
not-
week
Yeah, we're probably
between.
not gonna have anything on it for, for tomorrow, so maybe that would be the step, it'll just have to be tabled.
And Glenwood Chase, go to the next one?
Well,
Is coming?
I did correspond on that one.
Okay. And we discussed that with you.
Mhm.
remember?
Well, it started before I was representing you, but it
Exactly.
continued.
It did, it started, and we, as a board, discussed with you what had transpired up
Sure.
to that point.
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I was only saying, I don't think it happens every time. Some of the waivers are real little, but
No, and you're right, that's where we do a discussion, or if you will, yeah, a discussion about that.
Also, on the back here, section 425-411, they're requesting a waiver of the traffic impact study, and they're saying that they're comparing the usage for the self-storage to the estimated traffic that the landscaping company had, and that's kind of crap. That landscaping company sat there and they didn't do much of anything. There was really no traffic from that. This self-storage is gonna add traffic any which way you like it. And that intersection is already a nightmare. I can sit there for 3 lights trying to make a left-hand turn in the morning to get to work. So, this trip generation manual that they're talking about for the purpose of predicting traffic impacts based on different types of development, the estimated traffic for a landscaping company, considering the building on site is, blah, 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 the storage facility estimated, blah, blah. I don't,
Well, the planning commission reviewed that, and they
well, that's crap.
well, they unanimously agreed.
There was not really anything
and
when he was a
recommend-
landscaper sitting there.
I
It
just feel
was
like-
dormant, it was him and his wife.
I'm not getting involved in your conversation, Dottie, but I feel like you're out of line by saying that about, oh, you're not saying, you're saying that,
The
well,
traffic
Stanley
study
just said,
is needed.
right, okay.
Why, what did you think?
I thought you were
said?
saying that, the planning commission's
No.
decision was crap,
No,
because he was
no,
talking
no,
about it.
no,
Okay.
no,
Very
it's the
good.
comparison that they're saying, we're comparing the traffic from the landscaping company that was
Well,
there, which
what-
really was only there in name. They
what was
really
this-
didn't do anything.
They
There
had
was-
there in the past done a lot of business.
Do you remember,
That was dormant for years, and then came
Probably
Northgate,
5
and then
years.
the intersection, and then came St. Luke's, so this really,
Dottie, do you remember the other one that came in front of us, where then they were gonna put a Dollar General store on
Route
29?
29.
And
Down by
and
the
their traffic
magistrate's
was
office.
like, once they got established, they were saying it was pretty minimal. Once, once people leave their stuff, they're not there that often.
Yeah,
That's what they were saying.
That was the discussion at the planning
We talked
commission,
about
that in terms of a use, as far as the amount of traffic that the planning commission bought or agreed with it, that it's a very low volume use.
It is
That
really.
That you might get a car coming in there every now and then, and I think what they were trying to say, there was
And
limits
this
of.
is just gonna be self-storage, it's not gonna be used to store construction equipment, or a truck and a trailer, or nothing of that
It-
nature,
my-
because,
I believe that's what they explained, that it's just self-storage. I know we had that problem at that chicken coop place where some
it's been
construction
brought to my
company was.
attention that, these two have started up a small business, and they've purchased equipment and a truck and a trailer and the whole 9 yards, to pick up small jobs that agent case too big to get. And I wanna make sure it's not operating out of this facility, so, they're in there and they're pulling in and out with, excavators or
Good question, you would have
backhoes
to
or
ask.
front end, loaders of that stuff,
Can they do it? Was outside storage permitted there? I can't remember what the plan looked like.
well, I don't either, cause we kinda,
I don't recall, Steve,
Well,
if there was
there
any,
was.
there's the plans are here.
I think Dottie's bringing up good points here, and I'm
I'm
certainly,
concerned about the traffic. It's a nightmare.
certainly concerned about this issue of, is there storage other than these little buildings, if you will,
Is there a plan here that's self-storage?
called outside storage?
There probably is, if not, I could certainly get one out of the regular file. Well, of course,
Should we bring it up tomorrow night?
You can have them accept it as a condition of approval.
It might not even be on their plans, I don't know. If
Well,
there's
it
outdoor
would have to
storage.
be, it should be a plan.
No, I'm saying there may not be outdoor storage on it.
There's
Or there
just
might
so
be.
much traffic in the last 5 years at that intersection now that I'm just a little bit concerned that they're not doing a traffic study, and that's my opinion. I think they should have to do the traffic
I
study.
see some validity to that. The example you gave us was down on 29, but this is a major, as the township goes, that is one of the major intersections.
Yes.
Very major intersection. Certainly has no comparison to 29, an in and out on 29. And all I have to go by is the verbiage here, and it says, I don't know why, LTL said they had no objection, and it said the proposed use generates less traffic than the previous used property as a nursery and garden center.
Which sat dormant.
Who validated that?
The
Yes,
township
If
engineer
they're-
validated that with his
But he
professional
didn't have a
opinion.
traffic study.
yes, and that intersection has changed over the last 5 years drastically.
I'm not arguing with
And
that.
that landscaping sat
I
dormant
think these are
for all
good,
of that
Ken,
time.
I think you have some
so-
good questions, but we can't answer them here tonight. I thought you'd want to ask those tomorrow night.
One of the things that I did attend the planning commission meeting, but I didn't comment on this issue when this one was only under discussion. I commented afterwards because I didn't want to change the way the planning commission handled one thing after all these years. But I did say that it was something to consider in the future. Usually the waiver recommendations are a part of the preliminary approval as a package deal. You still negotiate with, you have to get a number from your engineer on what the waiver's value is. But it's not that common to have it come up only on the waiver vote and then go back to the planning commission. Your planning commission said, we're not going to entertain a vote because you don't have the waivers yet. In other words, your custom is to have the waivers come in front of the board for a vote before anything else. And you don't really know how you feel about the wait. I think you have a, what?
You're confusing me, and I was at this planning commission meeting, I don't go to many of them at all. This subject, they approved this, get me wrong here.
They recommended that.
They
waiver.
recommended these waivers.
Right, but they didn't make any recommendation on a plan because you don't have they won't make a recommendation on the plan itself until
Yeah.
you guys grant the
Yeah,
waivers.
And the logic on the planning commission has
For
been.
preliminary approvals, he's saying. They wanted preliminary approval. I'm speaking
They
for the
didn't
planning
get-
commission.
They didn't get preliminary.
No,
approval.
they
said they waited.
There were 4 items that they were up before them. One was the preliminary, and they were also after 4 final approval, which definitely weren't gonna give them. And then the 3 waivers that you have in front of you, they did not give them, they were not gonna recommend preliminary or final approval, but they did recommend the 3 waivers.
Okay, so now, I'm not sure what,
Well, so they recommended the waivers so that presumably, or hopefully, I guess you would say, that you guys would then vote on the waivers to grant the waivers.
okay.
Right? Then they would go back to the planning commission and say, we now have what you asked us to have, now we want a recommendation on the plan.
Gotcha.
And all I'm saying, and I don't know if it makes anything better for you guys or worse for you guys, I'm just pointing out that the method that I'm more familiar with is that the waivers are included in the resolution that grants preliminary approval. It says you have to satisfy all these conditions and you are hereby granted these waivers. It's all done at one time as a package. In my mind, it gives you more leeway, overall, because they're trying to get their preliminary approval and you're considering everything all at one time instead of in a vacuum, but.
So I hope you're agreeing that this is at a step for us to approve these waivers tomorrow night.
Yeah. Yes,
Well,
yes.
because you don't have the waiver calculations, $1, no.
But you,
So we're okay.
well, the only way you wouldn't be okay is the statement that started this conversation, which is we don't have a number to bargain against in granting them.
Correct.
Right, and I'm saying, but normally you have more time with that when the waivers are a part of the preliminary approval instead of coming once up to get the waivers, going back and coming back up to get the plan approval.
But the reason the planning commission has always done it this way, their logic on it, is that if there's waivers that are recommended, they want to know that the Board of Supervisors has agreed to those. Because if you don't agree to them, well, then it changes the rest of the plan approval.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the reason that they want to know, okay, the board has approved these 4 waivers, the developer and the engineers proceeding with their plan, they know, okay, I don't have to do a traffic study, I don't have to put curbs in, that affects their
And that's
their
fine,
plan.
like they said, most of the applications you get give open-ended time extensions. If you're up against somebody that's not granting time extensions, you don't really have that many trips back around the horn under a 90-day clock. So you'd have to either just deny or,
And how many units was this self-storage? I mean, how many trucks are we gonna have going in and out of that intersection, moving trucks? And I don't understand why the traffic study would be recommended as a waiver either.
that would John would have to answer. I don't offer opinions on whether a waiver
I
should
mean, the planning commission recommended it, my understanding, and Rich was at the meeting also, my understanding is that they thought that it was not going to produce more traffic. If anything, there would be less traffic than the previous use, and therefore, they
But the
didn't feel
previous
that.
use lay dormant for the 5 years that intersection expanded anyway.
Right.
And look at the amount of
Well,
accidents we have
they
there.
they
and
they
traffic.
didn't feel, in the planning commission's opinion, they did not believe that this self-storage was going to create additional traffic. They didn't think that. I'm not saying I agree with them, but that was what they thought.
And how many units is in there off the top of, do you remember?
When it's built out, it's more than 100.
And they're all trucks that are gonna go in and out of there pretty much with,
The person for Dottie and me to a degree is, the person that we don't have to respond is John Weber.
Correct.
He has
The answers.
Well, he will be here tomorrow evening.
critical input.
Right. Well, then why don't we get back to that tomorrow then?
Well, okay, but, so we will have a discussion about these recommended waivers, and will we be, certainly we can focus on whoever has questions on any of them, but how are you gonna handle but we haven't had a chance to discuss the contribution with you, so we're not gonna approve them tonight. Is that how you handle that?
If they have an open-ended extension, yeah, that's the only way I can handle it. Yeah. I'll talk to John tomorrow and see whether these have that kind of a monetary magnitude. I don't know. That's what I'm saying is, when it's a part of the preliminary approval, it all wraps towards that one vote at that one time, and you're addressing all those issues at one time, including what their contribution is.
Okay, well then, why don't we move to the Glenwood Chase? You have that recommendation for preliminary and final approval on the minor subdivision, and then the amended final plan approval. I am aware, I believe there isn't that outstanding issue on that contribution. Mr. Bresnan did make contact with the developer, but I believe nothing has been finalized.
Well, he pushed back, that number was set a long time ago at $30,000. And you guys asked me at a staff level to seek more than that. I ran an inflation calculator on that number and then added a little bit more on that and asked for $40,000. He came back and said, he sent me an email on Friday afternoon. Joe, maybe I shouldn't vent at you, but you are the one that sent the email, right? I was going to suggest not paying any of the $30,000 because all the work I agreed to do in the park, I know we have not written anything in stone yet, but we need to negotiate. We already agreed to mill and overlay Hendricks Road in front of the project, which we shouldn't have to do. It's not our fault that the road is in bad condition, and just because we're developing the site doesn't mean the road will get such a great percentage of additional use as to require our fixing the problem. We did agree to add to the plan, so I'm not trying to go back on that, but I just need to mention, carrying the site as long as we have did not put us in a better financial position. Purchasing the Schultz tract for NPDES and revising the plan cost us $500,000, and all we got were 2 additional houses, so I'm in the hole in that deal. The township was not willing to allow that lot to be developed with the same density as the main tract. All that said, I really am not sure what the owner will agree to.
So that is really the only outstanding item, as I recall, from the review letters. There wasn't,
Per John's email to that's correct. That was the one outstanding issue that John had identified in an earlier email.
So the developer is saying,
Yeah.
I'm sticking with the $30,000 contribution.
Well, whether it's posturing or not, he's actually saying I was gonna ask not to have to contribute at all due to all these other factors. Whether that means he wants to split the difference, I don't know. I'm just reading to you. I have had no conversation with other than this email that I got on Friday afternoon.
Well,
John does have a second item on here. Development of open space facilities in the adjoining Centennial Park by the developer must be discussed and resolved.
But I thought you did discuss that and resolve that previously with him.
Yeah, that they're going to put in
It
that.
has to be memorialized, but I think you
Right.
already
Right.
are in a basic agreement on it.
Right.
but it hasn't been documented.
Right.
Yeah.
And he did come to us, I mean, he approached us a long time ago with basically these same things he put in that email to you. He didn't wanna pay the additional money, and the thought at the time was he didn't have to run Roberts Road, so you thought he should, and maybe more. Those were discussions we had, and Jack here said basically those things. Nothing got resolved at that time, Ben, but he hasn't changed his.
He hasn't
position.
changed his mind, and then,
Right.
you know, if you wanna talk, so what do you suggest tomorrow night? We sit up there and negotiate with him? He's coming in for approval, and we haven't settled the negotiation. So tomorrow night, do we sit there and negotiate with him?
Well, I would try to do that tomorrow if I had, if I knew
Some
where.
direction.
Yeah.
Good,
I mean,
because the little bit of work that we got him to agree to do to that park is, again, this is just my feeling, is a no-brainer for a 45 housing development to have that park next to those 45 houses. It should have been, in my opinion, probably should have been there to begin with. Now, I would like to ask a question about Hendricks Road, because when the, I forget what the name of the Kirshner tract. Okay. They were gonna split the road.
Yes, that's correct.
So now that he's moving ahead and the other development is not,
He was only obligated to do his half.
but he's now obligated to do both.
We've never had that discussion. This is the first time he's been back since that
Well,
other project fell
I
through.
was dying at the planning commission to bring that up, but I didn't. What's gonna happen to Hendricks Road? He's only gonna do half, it's deja vu with the school, he got to do half the road, but this time, I don't think it'll work because we own the road. The developer has to put curbing and do the road, widen the road,
On
and-
his side.
just on his side.
Yeah.
well, that's that offsite
Well,
improvements
the case
thing.
of the Parklands is doing the whole road over
Yeah,
there.
that's silly.
Bill.
I'm just saying, at that time, when he was here last, he was banking on that other project to go, because he was gonna share their sewer treatment pump and all that.
But if you go back to 2006, it was just him.
Mhm.
So if you go to the original development plan, he had to be doing the whole road. He got a benefit of the Kirshner tract, then that came in.
Why do you
wasn't-
say
he
that, Ben?
wasn't
He
the-
might have only been doing his widening, he didn't necessarily have to.
Well, he
build
wasn't
an
the
overlay.
developer in
Whole road.
2006 either.
Huh?
I don't believe he was the developer in 2006.
Well, somebody was
Right,
for Glenwood
right,
Chase, I'm
right.
just saying,
But I
Where's
don't
the
know
records on
that
that, so we
that
can
mill
see?
and overlay of that whole road was even part of that agreement. He might have just been doing his road widening in the
Well,
improvement.
let's pull the original
well,
thing.
but
I'm just saying.
you would have let them do that, as a developer, that he wouldn't have had to redo the road?
What, mill and overlay the road?
Yeah.
That's
He-
not always done, Ben.
This,
By
I'm
long
assuming
shot.
just by the
It's a
sheer,
township road.
the sheer fact
We own
of
both
the
sides of that road. We
development.
don't own both sides of that road, we only own the side that he's on.
Oh.
Red Hill Borough owns the other side, down the
That's a good
Kirshner
point,
tract.
too.
That's right.
That road
and
goes down.
the
to-
Hendricks Road
Just like
consideration
Montgomery.
came up later. Do you remember, Gene, it was you, Rich, and I were out there with the developer, that's when that was negotiated, which was,
That's right.
that it wasn't part of
About
the
2
original
summers
approval.
ago, maybe,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Oh, he pulled up in that little sports car or
Okay,
whatever.
so now he's only obligated to do his, does
He
that
only
matter?
ever agreed to do his half.
Well, it's beyond that. He's only obligated to, so maybe that's why he agreed. You can't make him do the other half of the road.
He wasn't I don't understand your word obligated originally. He was not obligated to mill and overlay a township road. He was obligated to put his widening in and do the improvements on that.
He says in
Widening.
front of the project.
Yeah.
We met with him and negotiated the mill and overlay later,
Okay,
like 2 summers ago when Gene and I met him out there.
but he's only gonna mill and overlay
Upper Hanover
half
side.
of the road.
Does he say, is he clear in there what he's, but that's, yes, that was always my impression. but-
We've already agreed to mill and overlay Hendricks Road in front of the project.
So it's only on the half of Upper Hanover. Wow.
I would take it to mean that, yeah.
Well,
If
they'll
I
know
start
what
to get
township
asked that
they're in
question.
when they're driving.
Is that negotiation something that you need?
Well, again, you have an open time, you're open on time. You don't have to approve tomorrow.
Right.
We can say that we're still exploring some of the issues, and I'll explore some of the issues.
Right. I mean, he's sat on this for a couple of years, a long time, so.
Well, I just have a tough problem with any developer that came in 10 years ago and had a development approved and had a contribution, I don't care what the number is, and 10 years later, the number stays the same. For me, it defies logic. And
Well,
I,
if
for
he
one,
made
won't.
additional other contributions, then he would be making a legitimate argument.
And if I was the negotiator and we eliminated a whole access road from the plan, we eliminated the whole road, and we told him that. So this isn't all, as you know, negotiations is give and take. So there's been give, he's portraying that it's all on him. Well, no, he got some benefit out of that, okay?
Well, he's negotiating too, I understand. But this doesn't mean it's his last, he said we need to negotiate, so.
So did he, and I guess you only. you
That's
didn't-
all I got.
You didn't speak to him,
Nope.
so he turned down that $500 home thing, and I'm just pulling that number.
Well, no, I said he could pay $40,000, as each home settles. But that didn't make any difference.
Oh, he was only gonna pay it as the home settled.
That was.
Which is a very
before.
common,
Yeah, it's
that's,
soft dollars thing, because he's getting his money at the closing of each house.
And like THP with their,
Yeah. Same thing. in
So,
Northgate.
so you have to settle on the amount to
Each time he
begin
gets a
with.
CO, yes.
Yeah, so,
you
so
would.
you still have to negotiate the amount.
Yes,
right.
like we did at Northgate.
Northgate, well, we never settled on the amount, we came up with the $500 per house.
That was the amount we said.